We're called the underrepresented, the marginalized, and the at-risk. Growing up in a place where the majority of the people who I self-identified with were either incarcerated, sick, or well below the poverty line, it was easy for me to believe that the world had forgotten about me, and it was really easy to believe that the world didn't care who I'd become. And whenever the headlines read Hawaiian, it usually was associated with educational mishaps, political scandals, sovereignty issues, and pineapple pizza. On September 20th, 2017, surrounding the highly controversial construction of the 30-meter telescope on Mauna Kea, Chase Ko'okahi Konuha addressed the Board of Land and Natural Resources and asked them a very simple question. Are Hawaiians seen as real people? And this is something that really made sense to me. Because if we look around, who can be Hawaiian here in these islands? Who can be Hawaii? We know that an airlines can, or a hotel, even an institution can be. But when a human chooses to identify themselves as Hawaiian, they are met with opposition. Usually the same response ensues. Technically, you're an American. Born in the middle of Oceania, 2,500 miles from the nearest America, in a nation that is internationally still recognized as a sovereign kingdom, I have a hard time understanding how I am anything but Hawaii. Ko'okahi continued on addressing the board and stated that it seems like Hawaiian culture and values are a thing of the past. And he asked them, is this true? And although I am very appreciative of my U.S. citizenship and the ties that I have made to the continent, I don't feel that it has to come at the expense of being a Hawaiian. Even though society is so intent on establishing these differences and separating these identities, very similar to many of my former professors who were so insistent on trying to remove this identity of being a surfer from me being a scientist. I was allowed to surf on my spare time in my recreation as long as it did not inhibit my 60 hours a week in the lab. And it seemed as if surfing was not science. But to me, surfing is one of the most scientific things we could do. One of the greatest forms, one of the most highly sophisticated forms of human environmental interaction. As energy from the sun creates storms in the middle of the ocean, waves are generated, and they travel thousands of miles across the vast sea until meeting some form of obstacle, typically a reef, a coral reef. And in this moment, all that potential energy transfers into kinetic before dissipating into a distant land. But in that moment, we are able to harness that energy and partake in something that no classroom or professor or degree can give us. In that moment, we are the wave slider. And despite being discouraged from maintaining my ocean proficiency alongside my academic development, I pushed forward without any guarantee of a job or a career or a place at an institution after I was finished. I just knew inside of myself that if I removed myself from the place which I wanted to protect, I wasn't going to reach my goal. And it may seem a bit reckless to try to be a professional surfer alongside is maintaining my scientific competitiveness. But when I look back to the stories of my ancestors, I see that they're a little radical too. And it ended up working out. In 2018, last year, I finished up my degree in chemistry and secured a series of sponsorships that have allowed me to begin a career at home where I come from that is both equal parts surf as it is science. And finding allies within the system have helped me to find value in myself. And not to say that the struggle still doesn't exist. I still meet stereotype and stigma on the daily. But finding validation locally and globally has helped me really see that change is here. And with a strong community of creative scholars, I believe that we are shifting the way people see intelligence. And I know there are still so few places which we feel safe in science, technology, engineering, and math. But by establishing excellence, like true excellence in the things that we are passionate about, I believe we are the ones that are going to shift this paradigm. And it's going to invite new collaborations across a much larger indigenous community. The world believes in our thinking, and I know that there are people out there that want to invest in us. We don't need others to see that anymore. We just have to know that it's there. We have value. We always have. And we don't need to prove it to anyone anymore. You know? You clap, I guess, yeah. You know, how about we just focus on the work that needs to be done? Let's just focus on climate change. Let's focus on innovation. Let's focus on cultural practice and environmental and social justice. There's a new wave that's coming, and it's people like us who are going to enjoy the ride.
I wake up and read the paper. James Brown, James Brown. James Brown is dead and gone. I get up and read the paper. James Brown, James Brown. James Brown is dead and gone.
E nā au mokua, e nā kupuna, e nā akua, e nā poe, no kia halau, e nā Hawai, mahalo, mahalo, mahalo.